You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast, your local source for upcoming events, hot new listings, and bite-sized interviews with business and community leaders. Here's your host, Brent Jones.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 5 of the Fort Erie Podcast. It is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, and I'm your host, Brent Jones. Hey, let me just say, hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving yesterday, had a safe holiday, getting together with friends and family. If your household is anything like mine, you probably ate a little bit too much and drank a little bit too much. But the good news is just a short 4-day work week ahead of us, right? So quick announcement, nothing really to do with the podcast, but if you follow me on social media, and a lot of you probably do, my handle is @BuyWithBrent on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My wife and I announced yesterday that we are expecting our first child due this coming April. So if you want to see kind of the, cutesy announcement photo, check out my social media. You can find it there. Anyway, my guest for today is going to be Ashley Gibson, local real estate and family law lawyer, partner in Gibson and Reitboeck. But first, let me start with a quick reminder that I am giving away a $50 gift certificate to Lucky Strikes with every new episode of the Fort Erie Podcast this fall. To win today's gift certificate, it's really simple. Head on over to the show notes. You can find a section below this episode in the show notes where you can leave a comment. Leave me a comment about today's episode, kind of what you're up to, anything. You can really comment anything you'd like. My favorite comment wins the $50 gift certificate. So, the other way you can access the show notes below this episode is to head on over to theforteriepodcast.com, scroll down today's episode, click on it, scroll down to the comment section. It's really just that simple. So let's get into what's making news here in Fort Erie. And both of today's stories are kind of right up my alley. The two stories I want to talk about, of course, you can find links to the kind of the complete story in the show notes below this episode. But I say they're right up my alley because they're both related to real estate. The headline here for the first article is Rising Municipal Fees Add Cost to New Homes. So this is a kind of a brief discussion with Ted Brown from Ashton Homes talking about the Peacebridge Village development south of Garrison Road, and going through some of the, a very prevalent topic right now, the rising costs of homes, home prices, and how with new builds, a lot of that sometimes is just caught up in red tape, municipal costs such as building permit fees and development charges, which can rise as much as $4,000 to even $10,000 a year, Ted Brown said. So great article, worth checking out, just to kind of highlight, I guess, some of the challenges right now with housing prices, even when it comes to new builds. The other article is regarding changes on the way for short-term rentals in Fort Erie. The town is looking at higher license fees and caps on the number of short-term rental properties available for next year. Of course, this is a bit of a polarizing issue, particularly in areas like Crystal Beach, where local businesses depend so heavily upon vacationers and upon short-term traffic. So links to both of those articles, you can check them out in the show notes below this episode. For this week's hot new listing, I wanted to highlight 255 Birdie Street, listed by my team leader, Ray Rosatani at Remax Niagara Realty. This is a great family home, move-in ready, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It features a newer furnace, newer AC, newer roof, newer windows. It is centrally located, of course, on Birdie Street, asking price $495. You can call me directly for questions about that property or to book a private viewing. You can find my contact information in the show notes below this episode. And of course, don't forget, when you buy or sell residential real estate with me in Niagara region before the end of 2021, you will be entered into a draw to win a $3,000 gift certificate to redeem at Sell-Off Vacations. And of course, that gift certificate does not expire. So don't worry about travel restrictions. Whether you want to travel now or later, you can still win that $3,000 gift certificate and redeem it whenever you are comfortable. Let's get into Fort Erie questions and answers. See what's on your mind here, Fort Erie. Maria asks, does anyone know if the walking track at the Leisureplex Arena is opened for walking? And the answer is yes, Monday to Friday from 7 to 10, but you must bring identification and vaccination records, similar to if you were going to a gym. Larry says, I'm looking for someone to do some landscaping and gardening work in Stevensville. There were quite a number of different answers, different responses, but the top response that I saw was a recommendation for Green King Landscaping on Netherby Road. So I think that concludes what's happening in Fort Erie at the moment. Let's get on to my interview with Ashley Gibson. All right, folks, I am sitting down here with Ashley Gibson of Gibson and Reitboeck in Fort Erie. Ashley, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Morning, Brent. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me. And I wanted to start by asking you, what makes Fort Erie such a great place to live and work?
I'm biased because I was born and raised in Fort Erie, but it's a great small town. You have the benefit of everyone. I didn't love that as a kid so much because no matter where you went, someone could report back to mom and dad. But now that I'm a parent, that's definitely a benefit.
Kind of when did you know that you wanted to practice law? And growing up in Fort Erie, did you have sort of influences of maybe lawyers or, somebody in town that you looked up to that you wanted to emulate?
Yeah. So growing up, my best friend was Michael Hearn, and his dad, David Hearn, is a lawyer in town and was my first partner. And, I would listen to David talk about his work and, see their lifestyle. At the time we were little and David had a really big house and a fancy car. So I'm not sure whether that initially was what I thought was cool, but he always seemed to be on top of local issues and he seemed to be everyone's go-to guy when they had questions about local issues or legal matters, or when someone wanted an opinion on something, they asked that. And I like that. So definitely I credit and or blame David Hearn with my choice to become a lawyer. And to a certain extent, our mayor, Wayne Reitboeck, I was really good friends with his daughter, Lindsay, growing up. And Wayne, I knew, was a lawyer, and it's interesting, we would have sleepovers, and when we'd be, being teenagers, prank calling people at 3 a.m., he would come down and tell us, got to get off the phone, girls. I could have clients call me in the middle of the night. And it turns out that was just a very well played trick by Mr. Reitboeck, because he's never done criminal law. So
all right. Well, let's talk about your firm. You obviously already mentioned family law, real estate law. You're one half of the Gibson and Reitboeck partnership. When did that partnership come together, and what areas of law do you practice?
So I am mainly family law and real estate. My partner, Anthony, and I are both panel lawyers for the Office of the Children's Lawyer. Anthony actually started off in Niagara at Jones, Jameson, and Reitboeck. In late 2019, I had said to my then partner, Mr. Hearn, I said, I think that another lawyer, my practice is getting to be more than I can handle. I need another family law lawyer, because David's one rule was that he did not do family court ever. I think in the 10 to 12 years I was with David, he went to family court for me twice. Once I was in labor, and once I was 8 months pregnant and had broken my leg that morning. That was his rule. He didn't do family law. And Dave's, a little bit older than me. So he was looking to kind of wind down and didn't want to take on any more responsibility. So we just decided that I would take on a new partner. We're still in the same building. It's still a wonderful relationship. He just wanted to have the freedom to kind of wind down on his own terms. And I wanted to expand and have a little help, for the next time I was in labor or broke my leg.
Okay. And then now I didn't have this question scripted, but do you break your leg often? Are you accident prone?
No, I'm really not. It was once, and I was 8 months pregnant, and it was New Year's Eve.
Oh my God.
Office to go get ready for our party that we were having that night. And it had snowed, and the plow had moved the stones. And I went down, and I was 50 pounds heavier than I normally am. And I went down hard. So poor David had to come dig me out of the bank. And it was not a fun situation. But
I learned something new every time we talk, Ashley. It's like, It's beautiful. Why does the average person in Fort Erie need to make sure they have a will?
Everyone who is over the age of 18 really should have a will and powers of attorney. At the end of the day, God forbid something happens, before you think it should. Anything that you have, if you don't have a will, then succession set in and the government becomes in charge. So you really need to appoint a person to get the job done and to make sure that, what little you have isn't wasted and all going to the government.
So I think there's a lot of misconceptions where people don't fully understand the law. Maybe some of that comes from TV. I guess my final question for you is what are some of the popular misconceptions people have about lawyers, about courts that you just wish would go away?
Okay. So I often have to tell people in my first meeting, get everything they've seen about American television because it's the most inaccurate portrayal of this profession. On American television, you see lawyers who have one case a day, dressed head to toe in Gucci, and a limo picks them up. I'm thinking Harvey Specter on Suits. Very much not what it's like. And I think one of the big misconceptions is that a lawyer is here to make what you want to happen. That is so far from our role. Our role is to advise you how your fact scenario, how the law applies to that, and what's going to happen if. And a lot of the time we have to deliver really bad news to people. You get people in here saying, well, this person did this, and it's the principle of it, actually. Well, that's great. But, in a court of law, this is what's going to happen. You get people getting really upset and thinking that they're going to come in here and we're going to be on their side. Not cheerleaders. We're here to advocate for your position, but at the same time, it would be foolish of us to advocate for a position that we know has absolutely no chance of success in a court of law. That would be ridiculous, and we'd be laughed out of the courtroom. And unfortunately, our reputations are extremely important. If you don't want to be known as the Joker lawyer. Well, the good news is there's a lot of positive, of course, for what you do. And I'm going to put links to everything Gibson and Reitboeck is up to underneath this episode in the show notes. So certainly people around town can contact you for real estate law, for family law, for estate planning, wills, the kind of the whole kit and caboodle. But I want to thank you so much for spending some time today with me, Ashley, and having a chat with me. Great. Thanks, Brent. All right, welcome back, everybody. To conclude today's episode, I want to touch on just a few community events coming up. As a quick reminder, if you have a community event or you know of one that's coming up and you'd like me to mention it on the Fort Erie podcast, please go to theforteriepodcast.com, click the contact button at the top of the page, send me a note, and I would be happy to promote your upcoming event happening here in town. The first event I'm going to mention is coming up this Thursday, which would be October 14th at 6 p.m. Fall Paint Night. This is happening at Left of Central, the Board Game Cafe on Jarvis Street. The cost is $40, but includes your canvas and all your materials and instructions. It's Halloween themed. You can find the link to this event and each event in the show notes below this episode if you'd like to register. Then coming up on Friday, October 15th, also at 6 p.m., karaoke is going on. This is happening at the Person-Centered Care Building on Jarvis Street, starting at 6 p.m. on Friday. And then the final event I'm going to mention is a virtual book launch. So Mystic of the Midway, which is penned by A.A. Blair, his debut novel, which, as I understand it, takes place at the historic Crystal Beach Amusement Park. So this book launch event is happening on Sunday at 2 p.m. Anybody can join in really from the comfort of their own home, as it's an online event. So that concludes community events for this week. Join me next week for season 4, episode 6. My guest next week will be Dave Bergeron, owner and operator of Casa Hugo in Crystal Beach. That is all for now. Stay safe this week, Fort Erie, and I will chat with you soon.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones, a sales representative with RE/MAX Niagara Realty Limited Brokerage. Follow @BuyWithBrent on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates. Subscribe to the Fort Erie Podcast on popular platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and catch a new bite-sized episode every week. Until next time.